Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 19. Today we got a great guest. We have Nate Sexton. We're going to talk to Nate about the Sexton Firebird. We're going to talk to him about Jomez, the commentary stuff, as well as his playing career and what retirement might look like for him. So let's hop right into it. All right, and we're welcoming onto the show now our special guest. We have the 2017 USDGC champion, Nate Sexton. Thanks so much for joining the show, Nate.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing I want to get started with, just kind of current events. Obviously, you're not playing a full schedule this year, but you've still made plenty of appearances so far this season. Just what are your thoughts on your season so far as a whole?
It's rounding into form a little bit, I think. I started out pretty shaky, I felt like. But 11th at OTB and 10th at Portland Open were both finishes I was pretty happy with, despite starting out in like around 40th or 50th at both events after the first round. So I'm looking forward to when I don't have that clunker first round and I can kind of move along at a clip I'm used to and hopefully kind of get up in the hunt a little bit more. But those last two tournaments, obviously, I think were positive steps from the 30th and 25th I was taking early in the year.
Yeah, and do you attribute those early finishes to just kind of shaking off the rust from the off season, or is there something in your game that just wasn't clicking?
Oh, I mean, yeah, all of the above for sure, and better fields and bigger fields with talented players. I think all those things were working together. Plus course style, heavy wind and really big long courses, not necessarily the courses that you would expect me to do the very best on, with my skill set.
Right.
So I think a lot of things were working against me, but mostly just it falls on my shoulders to play better and putt better. And I wasn't really putting very well those first couple tournaments, and I'm starting to do a little bit better now.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that stronger field, and it's really becoming evident this year, especially. As a veteran player, kind of dealing with that field as it gets stronger, are there certain courses or events that you really pinpoint that you feel that being a veteran player on tour is going to give you kind of a leg up on the younger guys that are starting to bring in some new talent into that field? Are there any ones that you feel you have that special advantage?
Probably the USDGC. But none jump out to me other than that. I think just the amount of out of bounds out there, as you know, that course doesn't change a whole ton.
Yeah.
But it is a course that you really have to be smart about where you're being aggressive, and I think experience can help you. But we've seen it plenty of times. People showing up to tournaments their first time, and disc golf is disc golf, no matter how you design the course. So people are always going to be able to break out and play fantastic, even in the first effort at a course.
Right, and it's interesting, USDGC, really, players do talk about that course as the only event of its kind on the schedule, being so particular with the OB everywhere and taking such a crazy performance really to win that event. And a lot of times people do say experience is so important in that course. Do you feel that the rest of the tour is lacking more events that require a skill set like that, or do you think USDGC is fine, similar to the US Open perhaps in the golf scene, kind of being that one event that kind of stands apart from the rest?
I'm totally fine with that. I don't think every week needs to rely on so much out of bounds, and I don't think it would be that fun if it did. I mean, it's fun to do that kind of thing every couple months and play a course that kind of keeps you on edge every single hole the whole time you're trying to play. And it's almost like not fun in the moment, but then it's fun when you succeed and you can look back on it. But it's stressful the whole day in the moment to try to grind and continue to place your shots, even though there's kind of some pretty serious pressure on every shot, because any little mess up can kind of balloon into a triple bogey on almost any hole out there.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think more stuff needs to be like it, but I also don't have any problem with the way it is. So I'm pretty happy with the way the tour looks as is.
Right. Yeah. And talking about that USDGC style of play, your style of play that has succeeded there, obviously, in the past, which has been coined as Sexton golf now. When that term started circulating, were you surprised at how people interpreted your game, or did it always kind of suit the way you thought about attacking the course?
I don't know if I was surprised, although I do sort of push back against it a little bit in that it's not as if I have this 575-foot shot in the back of my arsenal that I'm not using, right? It's not I'm going, I could park it, but I just won't. It's like I'm trying to look at every hole just like everybody else and say, what's the shot or what's the play that can kind of net me the best score over these 4 rounds or whatever it is. It's not, I mean, all these guys, it's not like they're running for aces on hole 17 with the hay bales, right? It's not like anybody's that crazy. So sure, you could always like play for this perfect 1% type of throw, but I don't really see myself as like conservative exactly. More that I'm just like trying to play the best score that I can play the most times I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It really just comes down to course management, I think, is the word that people are looking for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you've really played that way, taking course management so seriously from the very beginning of your career? Or is it something you've really fine-tuned as the years have gone on?
It's been kind of that way since the beginning, I feel like. I think I just really... I think it basically boils down to, it's kind of a cliche, but I think I hate bogeys more than I love birdies. And I think you look at like Simon Lizotte 5 years ago. Yeah. That dude loves birdies way more than he hates bogeys. He's kind of starting to turn that corner now as we see him really golfing and playing great golf. But that's just 2 different styles. I muted myself. I'm back. Some guys I think are in that camp, where they're more interested in making a hero shot, and that's what brings them joy, and that's what they want to do. That's cool. For me, it's like making a plan and executing that plan. That's what makes me like get home from the course and be like, man, that's awesome. I'm really good at what I'm trying to do. So it's just a preference thing, I think.
I think it's interesting. Like, a lot of people are talking about how Simon has changed his game and found that success this year, obviously, with his wins now. Do you think that as the tour gets more competitive with better players and tougher courses, do you think there'll be a trend of more players trying to kind of hone in their games and realize that they have to play more, serious course management golf in order to ever have like real success on the tour?
Yeah, sure. I think that's already true. Like to have sustained, like repeatable success, you have to be a course manager, and Ricky Wysocki and Paul Macbeth are course managers also in their own way. So I think, you absolutely have to play the numbers, and you have to be able to play within yourself and resist the temptation to go for things that are, really unlikely, although they might be heroic and incredible.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I wanted to talk about is you're one of the few disc golfers I feel like that's had the timing and longevity of their career to kind of play through many different eras of the sport, kind of from the grassroots days to the boom that we've had in the recent years. Since you've seen so much of the change in the sport through all those years, what's one part of the sport that you're impressed how quickly it's advanced, and one part you're surprised hasn't changed much at all?
I think... I'm certainly impressed with how quickly, with this latest big like boom, whatever, fueled by COVID or whatever you want to call it, where we got this huge acceleration in the popularity of the Pro Tour. The payouts have really like flown up with the admission fees now, and I think, before COVID there was almost no paid admission, and now it's all paid admission, and that feels like it happened in the blink of an eye to me.
Yeah.
So that's something that I had always hoped would kind of happen, but it was always something I thought, I'll be 50 and I'll be seeing this. It's not going to happen like in 3 years, and it kind of did. So that's crazy, and something that definitely surprised me. And as far as something that I'm surprised hasn't changed, that's a little tougher for me to think of. I don't know really. I don't know if there's something I can pull out that I feel like, wow, I really thought that would be different, and it isn't.
Yeah, well, and it's certainly, disc golf has certainly stayed on a pretty consistent trajectory. There's nothing obvious that's been left behind. But thinking about maybe the essence of the sport of disc golf, is there anything that you think is getting forgotten too quickly, maybe within the disc golf community that you feel like could get left behind?
I think mid-ranges are getting left behind with the course design. Unless you throw 600 feet to start. But, I was jokingly, like, at Portland Open on one of the holes, I like, made a big show of, like, I'm throwing a rock, and it was, like, the only time. And it's just kind of sitting there at the end of my bag not being used. And even Macbeth came up to me and was like, hey, man, I'm taking a page out of your book. I got no mid-ranges.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's a different style. And that's what an 850-foot par 4 does. And, it's like there isn't really a a mid-range into the green, and I don't know if that bothers me. It's not like I'm some
Yeah.
prolific rock thrower and a guy that's known for throwing so many rock shots. I don't really, but I've never used a whole ton of mid-ranges. But I think the mid-range game is in danger of kind of being left by the wayside a little bit with the way the designs are going.
That's a good point, and it's funny you say that because I do remember always noticing that you were the kind of the player to really only have like 2 mids in your bag at a time, even years in the past. But it is certainly kind of a dying trend with the way courses are being designed. I think it's almost one of those things too where I think if the PDGA ever implemented a disc limit, we maybe even see them get pinched out of bags even more. But it's an interesting thought.
Yeah,
do you feel that
for sure.
the way that
I don't know if the disc limit will ever come for us, just because you got that problem of like it being the club and the ball. So it's like, if you're losing a bunch of balls in the water, you still get more balls if you're playing golf. So I don't know if we'll ever get there, but yeah, I could see that for sure. On some of these courses, it would be the first disc I would take out of my bag if I was forced to take something out.
Right. Yeah, I guess it is always also the case that the mid-range is kind of the easiest disc to bump out because it's in between the putter and the driver anyway. So I think a lot of players like to go to the mid-range because it was just comfortable in their hand. They like the way it flew, but it's not always a necessity. Would you feel that way kind of on the course?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, especially with as far as putters fly, you can get by without it, but I think a mid-range is a disc that all the professionals probably throw quite a bit on like their local practice course, but then the tour courses are just not really calling for that. And I'm not even making a judgment. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the fact of life, especially for someone in my class of distance where I'm lucky to get 500 if I really catch one great.
Yeah.
Then these long par 4s, there's really no opportunity for me to look to a mid-range on the second shot.
Definitely. Well, talking about a disc that probably won't be getting phased out anytime soon, I want to talk about the Sexton Firebird because it's such a polarizing disc, and it's really kind of, since they came out, first time way back 2015, they've really taken the disc golf world by storm. Certainly as far as Tour Series discs are concerned. There's literally, I don't know if you know this, there's literally a website that tracks how many are like being made and what stamps are the rarest. Like it's very fascinating to watch, but I kind of was wondering, what's the most expensive one you've seen sold so far?
One sold for $15,000.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep, that's true. So that's a record as far as I know for any type of frisbee that's ever been sold.
And was it just a mint condition 2015?
Yeah, it had a purple. It was on my living room wall for a while, and then I sold it, and it got resold. Yeah, it's kind of moved on through the collectors a little bit. But yeah, it was a 2015 with a black stamp that I stamped myself, and it had like a purple ring around the rim.
Wow,
a really nice disc for sure. But yeah, I mean, pretty mind blowing. That it could reach those kind of numbers. I'm pretty confident that's the most expensive frisbee in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you have any in your personal collection still that you kind of consider your most prized, like the untouchables?
No, those collectors are pretty aggressive. They've pretty much got it. They've pretty much got everything off of me that is like ridiculously rare, and that's fine with me. Like honestly, they want them more than I do, and that's okay. Like, so I still have plenty of 2015s. I mean, not plenty, but like 20 or 20 or 25, like quite a few nice ones.
Yeah.
But I don't have hardly anything like one of one or super super rare anymore. Yeah. And I'm fine with that because I'm not really trying to be a collector. I mean I have lots of great discs. Thanks to my sponsors, and thanks to having a long career, and thanks to the disc with my name on it happening to blow up.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I never set out to be a collector of discs.
Yeah. Well, when you first collaborated with Innova on the idea of the Sexton Firebird, how did that idea kind of come about, and did you ever really think it would become what it has today?
Definitely not. And the idea was just that I wanted a Firebird right out of the box that was the perfect Firebird for me. Yeah. And I was throwing glow Firebirds that were produced around 2005 or 2006, and I was using those for a long time. And the Firebirds that were available in like the early like 2012, 13, 14 were these like kind of board flat King Climo, super, super overstable, super, super stiff discs.
Yeah.
And they have a use but not a very common use for me. It's like thumbers. It's like raging headwind. The disc doesn't even go 300 feet if I put everything on it.
Oh, yeah.
So that was not the type of Firebird I wanted to throw. I wanted to throw the ones like the ones I had been using and was already like my number one disc in my bag. It just didn't have my name on it because I didn't deserve that at the time. I was just kind of a solid pro. But yeah, just trying to build something that was in a little bit flexible plastic and that had a good feel in the hand that I could kind of squeeze into and grip, and something that would get up and fly a little bit in the middle of the flight at high speeds with still the reliable fade, but you could get some distance out of it.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, it certainly has caught on. I've got one in my bag. I think everybody, that throws Innova has got one in their bag. My other question would be, once you retire, do you think the Sexton Firebird could live on past then?
Yeah, I think so. But you never know. But I don't think it's necessarily linked to my status on the tour. But you never know. I mean, the fans will vote on that. I think Innova will probably be willing to at least try to produce it beyond my playing years, and we'll see if people still like it. That's great, and if they don't, that's fine. There'll be somebody else waiting to fill that space, and they'll hopefully do really well.
Well, I hope they keep making them because I'd like to buy them at retail and not secondary market.
Sure, man. Sure.
But so another thing I want to kind of get into is your role in commentary. One of your disc golf side ventures has been your success in that field. Many fans have praised your work alongside Big Germ with Jomez, as well as your work on the Disc Golf Network. Was commentary something you took a liking to right away, or did it kind of take some time to warm up to that?
I enjoyed it from the beginning, and the beginning was like just people asking me to do it, at tournaments that I had played, like B tiers, and stuff. Like in 2008, it would be people like I remember this guy. I think his name was Steve Yang. He was making a DVD of the Rose City Open, like a Portland B tier, I remember recording some commentary for that DVD. And it was just like something that comes pretty naturally to me. I don't think it's going to surprise anyone that follows me, but I'm like sort of a talker, I like to talk, and I have an easy time having a conversation and just sort of being myself, regardless of there being cameras or there being people, or it doesn't really matter to me. I have a pretty easy time just sort of speaking my mind and talking. So maybe that's why people ask me to do it. Maybe because I was a good player and I also had that kind of skill. So yeah, I got into that, and then Central Coast hit me up to do a few things on tournaments that I've been playing. They bought me my first studio sort of microphone, sent it to me, and I was recording remotely with them sometimes. There wasn't even a thought in my mind that maybe someone would ever pay me. It was just like, oh, sure. If Ian asked me to, yeah, what do I got to do? I'll do it. Yeah, I'll record it. That's fine. And that's how it started out with Jomez too. Just like, yeah, I mean, sure, of course. If you guys want me to do it, that sounds fun. I'll do it. But it never was a thing where I thought, oh, maybe this will advance my career. I wasn't really thinking about it that way. I was just more like, oh yeah, these guys are cool, and making videos is cool, and sure, I'll talk while I watch golf. I like watching golf anyway. So go ahead and record me if you want to. And then obviously it's grown into something pretty big. Well,
yeah, it's definitely one of those side careers in disc golf that has quickly blossomed into a real job. And kind of talking about that, commentators, it's quite a hot subject in disc golf. I mean, they get plenty of heat being in the spotlight, but I think a lot of people, realize that it's a really difficult job as well. Did you find, especially doing stuff with the Disc Golf Network, is there kind of a steep learning curve to it?
I did not experience that because I just feel like I just kind of sit there and watch golf and say what I think while I'm watching it. So it's not that there's some nuance there, obviously, like letting other people get their point across and collaborating and sort of agreeing with your co-commentators, or if you're going to arguing in a way that isn't too confrontational.
For sure.
So, I there's some of that. And, live is a little bit different than post, but not as different as people made it sound, in my opinion. Like, they're kind of like, when I started doing live, I feel like people were kind of go, hey, this is a different animal, man. This is live. And I'm like, my answer to that was kind of like, well, I do champs versus chumps. That's essentially live. That takes 3 or 4 hours. True. I stand out there and talk through the whole thing, and I've done that lots, so I did not find it to be like a really different thing. It's a little different having like someone actively in your ear saying like, hey, remember to mention this, or we got this commercial coming, and there's like a voice in your ear as you're trying to speak, which that can be kind of difficult to kind of get you tripped up a little bit. But overall, no, I find them to be pretty similar and both fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, well, and I think you found quite a bit of success with it. It seems like the fans like having you on the network. As you look kind of towards the future of your presence in disc golf, would commentary be an area that you would like to consider continue pursuing toward like beyond your playing days even?
Yeah, absolutely. My main concern there is like I think that probably ultimately commentary will be done on site someday. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that I want to travel the way that I've been traveling in my quote unquote retirement. We'll see. Yeah. It depends on how that would all work and what the contracts would look like, obviously, and and what my life is doing at the time. But I do not see myself like still on the tour at age 50 just to be a commentator and still going to all the same cities and being on a plane every other week. But if there was a studio near me, then absolutely that would be something I'd be interested in. So you never know. I mean, I could see doing it a couple times a year on site, but yeah, I don't see myself traveling like a professional disc golfer once I'm not a professional disc golfer.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of talking about that, transitioning towards that balance you're mentioning, you've talked a lot about kind of balancing the time management between your family and the tour, especially as you get towards the latter part of your career. What has challenged you the most about that process, and is it hard for you to think about retiring in the future?
It's challenging to not play as well as I know that I can play. I would say that's the most challenging part. And I think people often kind of frame it as like, oh, look at him, like what a good dad, like he's putting family first. And my response to that is kind of like, I don't know. It's not like a choice, right? I'm not, I don't know. I sort of, that makes me feel a little uneasy when I see people like praising me for like staying home with my daughter when she wasn't in daycare because there was a pandemic or whatever and she couldn't get a vaccine. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I get what they're trying to say and I appreciate people, saying that, but it's not like my wife works 70 hours a week or whatever it is in residency. She's about to graduate, thankfully, this weekend. So we're kind of at the end of this like 8-year road of medical school and residency and all this stuff. Yeah. But it's not like there was this choice hanging out there like maybe I could play all the tournaments and still have this, it's like that's life happening. And that's just me reacting to my situation, and that's fine. And it was fine with me to not be at every tournament. I was never at every tournament anyway, except for those couple years I was with Paul, and when I had my own RV, when I was really out there. But the majority of my career has been kind of picking and choosing and flying to places. But I'd say the hardest thing is playing below what I feel like I can do, because it's hard to like admit that I'm a little rusty or I'm getting older or whatever that is. You feel like, no, I definitely can still average 1060 for a weekend, and why am I not doing that? That's annoying. But it's hard to, you can pin that on all kinds of different things. But yeah, and then what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
I was wondering if it's difficult for you to think about the idea of retiring, if that's kind of grim to you.
No, that's not difficult to think about for me. I don't think. I've been doing this a long time, and retirement in disc golf is so like foggy anyway. Like, who retires? I'm gonna still be out there, and maybe I won't be cashing, but like I'll still come play some tournaments if they'll let me in. We'll see. Maybe they won't even let me in those days, but like, as long as if I still have a lifetime exemption into the USDGC, I'll be out there trying my hand at it every once in a while and just play, and who cares, man? I mean, and I'll still be playing locally, and I'll play this game as long as I'm able. So retirement is, I don't know. It doesn't feel as final as say like a basketball player or somebody who's like, this is it. I have my final season. And goodbye everybody. Because I'll still be around and involved. So no, it doesn't pain me or scare me or I'm not losing any sleep over the fact that I'm towards the end of my elite level career.
Definitely. Well, looking back on all you've done in the sport, especially with the touring and everything, because it's such an interesting thing to think about with disc golf, like how many different ways there is to kind of attack the tour, and you've certainly been doing it for so many years. If you could do it all over again, is there anything you change about the way you approach being a professional disc golfer?
Man, I think, yeah, I guess if you could have told me that it could blow up the way it did, and that the Sexton Firebird could like do what it did, I guess I would have taken it. You want to say I would have taken it more seriously when I was younger and like practiced harder, because like I've said this before, but like the whole thing, I feel like I've said this a lot, but I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. And the whole thing, like becoming a professional disc golfer, it was all just having fun. It was all an accident in a way, like where I was going to college, I was planning to like do something in the sciences. I was getting an environmental science degree. Then later I was thinking being a high school science teacher. I was never thinking maybe this is my career. I was always thinking, wouldn't it be fun to win $500? Like that, like I'm pretty good at this. I like winning. This is fun. I'll go play against these guys that are nice guys, see if I can beat them, maybe pay my rent, whatever. And then it just kept going from there. So I guess if I knew what I know now, that there was a path to like financial stability and all these things that were possible through disc golf, then sure, maybe that would have convinced me to like practice more or whatever it is, or be having a personal trainer through the whole time and be in great shape or whatever it is. I don't know, but it's hard. That's impossible. Hindsight obviously gives you a lot, and
yeah.
And there's equal chance, I think, that even if I knew that, I still would have been kind of lazy and not done it, and not done a million workouts either. So who knows, man? I mean, I'd like to think that I would have like trained more and maybe stacked up a couple world championships or something, because there's no question I could have worked harder. But who couldn't have? I'm sure everyone can say that.
It's always out there. Well, in any case, you've had a lot of important impacts in disc golf. From your successful playing career to the commentary, and then all of the teaching you've done over countless clinics. With that being said, when people ask about Nate Sexton, 50 years from now, when I'm telling my son about Nate Sexton, what do you want them to say about you as a disc golfer?
I obviously I think of myself as a player first. And when people it's kind of a 50-50 thing now, I think, when people kind of come up and say, hey man, we're so excited to meet you, big fan, and they'll, whether they go commentary first or golf first, it's getting to be like a 50-50 thing. And I expect that's only going to trend, if I keep working in this field, trend even more towards, we love your commentary, man. And there's a little part of me in the back of my head that's like, whoa.
Yeah, I got a USDGC, come on.
Yeah, like I'm on the lead card tomorrow. Come on, don't, how about you talk about the golf? The golf is pretty good too. So I guess I obviously I'm not going to go down as a top 10 player of all time or anything like that. I've been a great player, but I'm not like the cream of the cream, greatest player ever, and that's fine. But yeah, I hope to be remembered as a player first, and just as a kind of jack of all trades guy that was willing to, try a couple different things and try to advance the game and try to find different ways to be successful, and was able to be successful in a lot of those things.
Yeah, well, I think you're definitely on your way there, and you've certainly had a big impact in disc golf throughout the time that I've been following it. But that's all I've got for you, Nate. I really appreciate you joining the show, and we're wishing you the best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, man. It was fun talking to you.
All right, and thanks again to Nate for joining the show. It was awesome having him on and hearing about it. Can you believe a Sexton Firebird went for $15,000? That is insane. Make sure to tune in next Thursday. We're going to have another great guest. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you then.